back to Making Art with Mrs. Gordon. Today we'll be making a painting called Black Girl Magic. First you'll need a pencil. You'll also need some paint brushes. You want a variety of sizes, large to small. You'll also need some paint. You'll need brown, gold, white, black, and a pink. You'll also need a cup of water to be able to clean your brushes and some paper towels. This way you don't make a mess. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch out a face of my girl that is for my Black Girl Magic painting. I'm going to sketch out her face or her head shape and her pigtails. So first I'm putting in little large circles for her pigtails. One on the right side of the canvas and then another one of equal size on the left side. Both circles are a little bit above halfway on the canvas. As I start to sketch them in, you'll be able to see them as I darken them. If drawing a circle is too difficult, feel free to use a cup or something round to trace. When I first start, my circles are of a moderate size, but as I get further along, you'll notice that they get a little bit larger. Now I'm sketching in the face. So I connected the pigtails with a line going across, and now I'm doing the sides, and I'm drawing in a bit of a diagonal line on both sides, and this is the side of the head. These diagonal lines go all the way down to the edge of the canvas. And you'll see me just kind of going back and forth, cleaning up things, making the pigtails a little bit bigger. I'm now adding in right in the center a part, so this way my little girl can have the part down the middle and her hair can look like it's slicked down on both sides. As I sketch it in, you'll start to see how it looks. Now I'm sketching in the ears, one on the left, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and then one on the right. You'll see me just kind of fine-tuning, fixing things, making them the way I want. You'll notice that my right ear is a little bit larger than my left, so I kind of go back, make them a little smaller to make it feel more childlike and make sure they're kind of even as possible. And you'll see I'm starting to clean up, and you can see the face or the head of the little girl really developing. All right. Now that I'm done sketching, we're going to paint the background. So first thing you want to do is you want to use your largest brush, as you see on the screen. Make sure you rinse it off first, just to make sure there is no residue, and if it's a newer brush, just to kind of get those bristles moving. I rinse it off first in the cup of water, and then I wipe off any excess water so it does not drip on my canvas. We're going to use pink for our background. You can use any pink you like. If you prefer a dark pink like the one I'm using, you can use that, or you can use a lighter pink. It's your choice. Once you cover the entire canvas, You want to go back and use another layer of the pink once it's a little bit dry, just to make sure you don't leave any white spots and you get rid of any paint strokes that you can see on your canvas. That's what you see me doing now, just doing another coat all over the canvas so it's a little bit more even and none of the background, none of the white is showing, and it has a cleaner, more finished look. At any point during this video, please feel free to pause, rewind, so you can make sure that you are painting and creating at a pace that works best for you. There'll be many moments that I speed up through the video, so feel free to stop it so this way you do not get left behind. Now that I'm done with my background, I'm rinsing out my brush and I'm going to put that one to the side. I'm going to get another brush that's slightly smaller. For you, you can stick with the same size brush if you'd like, but if you have something that's a little bit smaller like the one on the screen, you can feel free to switch to that. While the background is drying, I'm going to work on the face. So I'm going to use brown to paint in the face. Now you'll notice I start off painting with this brown, but I'm not really liking how dark it is. So I start to kind of mix brown and white together and it made it very grayish. So then I went ahead and found a tan and I'm going to use that and mix that with my brown just to get it a little bit lighter so it's not too dark. You can use whatever brown you like and you can find or create a brown that's closer to the complexion that you prefer. If you are lacking a brown at home, feel free to mix colors like red and green to create brown or yellow, blue, and red to create brown. Now with my brush, I'm painting in the face. I'm going to paint in the face evenly, paint in the ears, and then we'll be on our way to the next step. As you're painting in the face, when you get to small areas, small corners, if your brush is a little too large, feel free to put it to the side and switch to something smaller. You'll notice as I'm painting, I'm using my larger brush, but I'll soon realize that it's a little too big and I'll start to switch. Also, make sure you take some time to put in that part that I just put in at the top of the head. And then also make sure again the face and your ears are filled in, and you'll see that I'm using that smaller brush just so I can make sure I'm neat and I'm staying inside of the lines as best I can. You'll notice really quickly my brush, I hold it above both ears. It's because I'm trying to make sure they're even. So I'm standing and just letting the brush hover on top. Now that I'm done painting the face, the ears, and the part, I'm rinsing off my brushes. You want to make sure you always clean your brushes. So this way you can ensure that the paint does not stay inside of the brush. It's okay if the water starts to change colors. Change it as needed when it gets too dark or it's not cleaning your brushes well enough. Also, make sure you're letting your painting dry in between steps. Even though I'm going pretty quickly through this, it was not this quick to paint. So you want to make sure you're allowing your painting to dry in between steps to ensure that you don't cause any bleeding from one part of the painting to paint into another or to bleed into another part. Now that my brushes are clean, I'm now going to switch over to another brush and I'm going to start painting in the hair. First, I'm going to paint in the hair that is slicked down or that should look slicked down when we're done, and then I will paint in the pigtails. For this part, you're just using pure black paint. You don't need to mix it with anything, and you could use a larger brush just to cover more area quicker. So again, I'm just going to paint in the slick down area first. After that, I'll paint in the pigtails, and then I'll explain other parts that I'm going to do next, just so you can understand before you begin. As I'm painting in the hair, I realize I don't want my part to be very large, so I kind of take my brush and I overlap some of that part just to thin it out a bit, make it feel a little bit more realistic. I then use my brush to make the wavy lines at the scalp, right at the edge of the hairline, and then I switch to a smaller brush just to clean up any edges. Feel free at any point to pause the video if you need to, so you can make sure you're creating this the same way. Also, I added in some sideburns, and now I'm just going to do the pigtails. As I'm painting them in, you'll notice I'm staying in a circular motion just to make sure they stand out differently from the other hair that I created. And you'll also notice that I go a little bit larger. So as I paint them in, I realize they're too small, so I do make them a bit larger. The next step, you should switch to a smaller brush. We're going to make these little curly lines on the edge of each pigtail. All I'm doing is making wavy lines, kind of going back and forth along the edge with my smallest brush. So again, you'll notice that I kind of start off inside the pigtail and I work my way out, and you'll see these little curly and wavy lines forming. And I don't just go around once, I do it multiple times. I even go inside of the hair where it's slicked down, even though it's black, just in case it'll show. And I repeat that process and I continue to go over it multiple times to make it feel more natural, like the hair is curly and it's pouring out of the puff. Once I'm done with the right, I'll go ahead and move over into the left. I'm going to speed up from here just so we can get to the next step. Once you're done with the hair, go ahead and rinse your brush out. We're now going to put in the Black Girl Magic name at the very top of the painting. So once I'm done cleaning my brushes, you'll notice I switched to a smaller brush and I start to try to hand write those letters in, but I didn't really like what was happening. So I switched over to some of my acrylic pens that I have. If you don't have acrylic pens at home, you can just do this with your brush. You could also do it with a Q-tip, or if you have some type of Sharpie, you can do that too. If you use a Sharpie, you won't be able to use white, but you can use a dark color like black or blue or something like that that will show on top of that pink background. So right here, you'll notice that I'm starting to write in the words, but then I changed my mind thinking I could have better control if I switched over to my acrylic pens. So on the screen, you'll see 3 different types of acrylic pens that I use. I have 3 sizes, a larger, a mid-size, and a smaller one. I don't have the exact measurements. I'm starting off with my smallest one, just to see if that would work out in size, and then you'll see that I'll go back and switch and go to a larger one. I'm not going to play this slowly through because you can decide how you want to write your letters. So I'm going to speed through this and you can just watch as I create the words. As I'm writing in the words, I noticed that it was a little too thin, a little too light. So I go back with one of my larger acrylic pens and I make it a little bit bolder. And I go over it a few times just to get it to the boldness that I prefer. And when I'm done with each letter, I then will go back with my paintbrush, my smallest one, and fill in that exclamation point at the very end. So again, if it's too difficult to use the brush, you can always use other things like a Q-tip or a Sharpie marker, dark color, or you can attempt the paintbrush. It's totally up to you. Right now, I'm rinsing off my brush and we are going to start working in some highlights on the hair. So on my plate, I'm going to mix together some colors. So I already, something similar to the skin tone that we did earlier. I'm going to mix together a brown, a lighter brown, and then use some of that tan to create some highlights in the hair, just to make it pop out more. So you'll notice on the plate, I'm mixing together that tan and that brown that I already have there on the side, just to get a lighter brown, but not too light, something close to the skin tone. And what I'm going to do is make small little wavy lines on the pigtails. I'm not doing a ton because it is highlights. I don't want it to be super overpowering, but I want a little bit of variation in color and a little bit of value change. So you want to do the same thing you did before when you put in the curly lines for the pigtails. You want to do little wavy lines or little S's. And when you get to the slick down area, you want to do little lines, kind of straight or curved lines on the edge along where the baby hairs would be. Just a few highlights. Now you'll see that I'm going in with the tan color. If you don't have a tan, you can mix a lighter brown with white, or white, add a little bit of white and yellow to your brown just to get it a tannish color so it doesn't turn grayish on you. So again, if you don't have a tan, feel free to use brown, yellow, and a little white just so you can get a tan color that does not turn gray. Next, I'm using a Q-tip, so if you need to stop the video just to grab one, you can. And I'm using that gold color that I have, and I'm making little polka dots all in the background of my painting. I had two different golds because I wasn't sure the difference in how they turn up. I started off with the darker gold, and then I went to that lighter one. And on the canvas, it really did not make a difference, so I just stuck with that darker gold and made polka dots all throughout the canvas. Now that I'm done with the polka dots, my next thing I'm going to do is put in the crown because my girl, because she's Black Girl Magic, I think of her as a queen or a princess. So I'm going to use my brush, my smaller brush, and I'm going to paint in a crown with my white paint. If you need to use a pencil or something to sketch it out first, you can. The reason we have to put white down first is because white is opaque, which means you cannot see through it. It's not transparent. So what happens is, because I put that on top first, my gold will show very bright. If I did not put down the white and I tried to put the gold on top of that black and on top of that pink, the black and pink would show right through that gold because the gold is really transparent. It's really see-through. It's very thin. So everything in the background would show through. So first we have to use white, almost like it's a white out. And we'll white out part of the hair, part of the background to create our crown shape. We'll fill in that crown, and then from there We'll have to let that crown dry just to make sure when we put the gold on, it's not mixing with the white. And then once that crown is completely dry, we can put the gold on top, and then we'll have our beautiful gold crown that matches all those beautiful gold dots that we just put in. I'm going to speed up through this so you can see me fill this in, and then I'm going to speed through the gold, and I will wrap up at the end. So right now I'm just about done filling in the white. Please make sure to allow dry time before you put on the gold. I know in the video it doesn't seem like I allowed it, but I did take several minutes before I put on this gold layer. I'm filling in the gold, and I did mix together my two golds just to try to get it as bright as possible. And you can transition from different brushes. You can use a larger brush to fill in that larger part of the crown. But when you get to those points, you want to make sure you kind of go back and use a small brush just to stay as neat as possible and as clean as possible so you don't have to go back and fix anything. As I'm working, I'm noticing that one of my gold dots from earlier is right next to my crown. It almost feels like a mistake, so you'll see me kind of go back in with my pink just to get rid of that. Now that you've finished your crown, you can consider your painting complete. How did your Black Girl Magic painting turn out? I know it turned out wonderful. The next step you'll see me do is I'm going to take a small paintbrush and use the color white to draw my name in the right hand corner of the painting. Feel free to use a brush to write your name or a marker. Either way, you want to take credit for your beautiful design. And lastly, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for making art with Mrs. Gordon.